Any questions? So I'm going to try and paraphrase. When it's hard to talk about non-binary transition to someone who identifies as non-binary, which is not cis, because it implies a sort of binary transition. It implies what we think of as transition, and maybe we should use other words. Like, what was your suggestion? Recalibrating. I had a slide there in the beginning that said transition is alignment. A lot of people use different words for transition, and that's fine. But I also want to kind of, spread the gospel that transition does not mean binary transition, right? It does not mean going all the way. It doesn't mean the whole package. It means doing whatever you need to do to feel comfortable. And if you want to use different words for that, that's fine too. I think it's affirming that if you feel you need to make changes, you can make those changes, however many or however few you want to make.
Thinking about it that way, I don't know how anybody can possibly be cisgender. I mean, it's the genuine.
I wonder that too.
And so, but if I don't want to be one of those people who are like, all lives matter. This is how do you not trivialize it and yet talk about, I guess, the normal process that everyone does of trying to figure out where they are and where they aren't.
Yeah, how do you find that, balance between everyone goes through this, but also you're unique and personalized and individual? I don't know. Does anybody have a suggestion? You guys are the professionals. I'm just this blogger person.
I don't know the answer to your question, but I would suggest that maybe it's couched within privilege. And so when we look at how we walk through the world.
And then I agree that, you start thinking, how can anyone identify as cis? And I was at another conference, which was for trans youth. It was only for kids, right? And the parents were there. And at the end of the conference, the presenter asked, what did you learn about gender? And all the parents raised their hands, and all they talked about was their gender. Their kids were trans. They were not trans. But all they talked about was their gender, right? Because everyone has a gender. And even if you're cis, you'd never fit the mold perfectly because, there is no mold, right? It's a myth. And so part of why I'm so passionate about this is just to expand everyone's mind about how we think about gender, because it applies to everyone.
I have a concern with the word comfortable as if it's a destination,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to be there and have it, and then you always know how to get there, and it's always going to be there. I'm rarely comfortable being the person trying to be with you. Feels like I'm never going to make it.
And you never are. I mean, who's 100% satisfied with their life? Right? Non-binary, trans, cis, nobody. But you do things to make it, okay, right? There's times when it's less than okay, and there's times when it's more than okay. And I think that what I've found, at least in my personal journey, is there's things I did with my gender that made a lot of my big worries and anxieties go away so that I never had to worry about it again. It's like if you put a roof over your head, you know that you're going to come home every single night. So then you never think about, oh my God, where am I going to sleep tonight? It's just not something you think about, right? You might have other things that you think about, but that's one basic necessity that you never have to worry about again. And I think of gender as the same way. You get to a place of comfort where you don't have to think about gender all the time, every single time, and it's bothering you, right? And that's what I mean by comfortable. And you can use other words. The words are limited. But it's getting to a point where I don't wake up every day and hate myself and hate my gender and think, oh my God, what is everyone going to think? And what name am I going to use? And what pronoun? And what bathroom? And what clothes? And it's just no longer, this big cloud over my head. I'm just comfortable, I'm just me, and I worry about what I'm going to eat. And what Netflix show I'm going to watch tonight.
How will I know that?
You as a provider?
Yeah, or the other people in my life that I care about.
The other people?
Not necessarily just...
It's hard, right? It's again, it's something internal. And I think one way that my partner and I used to kind of measure is how often did we have these gender talks? Right? Because we would very often I'd come home and I would start talking, oh, I'm thinking about this and that, and then we would talk for like 2 or 3 hours, and that was pretty much like almost every day, or at least once or twice a week, we would have a big, long, lengthy gender talk. And then one day we were like out to brunch, and we said, wow, we haven't had one of those in a long time. I guess I'm okay now. It's just something that happens.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I think as a provider, you have to be comfortable in asking. Okay to talk about it, I would think, because you're in the human experience together. You know, I think it's a good way to keep a dialogue going. You know, you have to ask them, okay, where are you at in this?
Yeah, you have to ask.
As a provider, discussion with ourselves of what are our assumptions, what are our biases, what are these things that we might still be holding on to that are going to prevent us from seeing those patients from where they're at, no matter what they tell us. Can I do this? What are my hang-ups? What are some biases or assumptions that I need to work through first to be able to be competent and provide good care to my patients?
And it's very hard, and a lot of it is what we were talking about, is training yourself. Just the first step is being aware and noticing that you're making these assumptions, and then just kind of reminding yourself, and you're going to make them, right? But as long as you separate, this is my assumption, and this is, my patient, my client that I'm going to take care of, and I'm going to shelve my assumption for now.
There's just one more thing. I realized when I'm thinking about comfort, it's helpful for me. I'm looking for lack of conflict.
Comfort as lack of conflict. I think it's very appropriate for the non-binary experience, which is I know what I'm not, I don't know what I am. So I know I don't feel distress. So I guess I must be okay. I like that.
I think something that I've run into with a lot of, I work as a therapist, so I'm going to say clients, a lot of the non-binary clients that I work with, they know that they want to leave point A, and choosing a route gets confusing and they often get stuck. So I have people that I've worked with for extended periods of time where we're having kind of every week those hour-long gender conversations around like, maybe I'll start T, maybe I'll have top surgery, maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll do that. And like, obviously they're feeling the disconnect between their body and their identity, but they're like, you have language around helping somebody acknowledge that it isn't necessarily the best route, it is a permanent, like, just being stuck in that cloud for
Yeah.
so long.
And we're gonna go to that next, and that's a perfect segue. Because social transition is not permanent, right? You can change your name, you can change your pronoun, you can change your clothes, and that's kind of the magic of it, is you can just explore and trial and error and do whatever you'd feel like and experiment even, and I think that's encouraged a lot of the times. But you said T and surgery, and so I want to talk about medical transition because I think it's important to talk about the details of it.
You mentioned doing a lot of research yourself and also just asking us to do a lot of research. I'm wondering what things other than like medical models, if there's other people blogging that you would suggest to learn more about different individuals going through different transitions.
I have a blog. It's newchoice.me. I put a lot of like informational articles as well as the personal. Most of the research I do is compulsive Googling. Like I will find the medical document, but then I will also find somebody's blog and their experience and what they went through. Then I'll call up a doctor and ask them. Then I'll call up another doctor and ask them. Then I'll look for like alternatives. So when I was researching a hysterectomy, for instance, I didn't just research hysterectomy in trans men. I researched women's hysterectomy, right? Because all women have that and they get it and it's a common procedure. And so what are the options? What do they do? What are their issues? So there's like, you have to kind of be creative in how you do this research and don't go just with the traditional path. Like, oh, this is the medical document. This is what it says. Like, oh, testosterone. I'm going to find out everything I need to know about testosterone, right? And you just pick up things. You come to conferences. You listen. I don't know. Research is a process, and you have to be open to just kind of trying things out.